Well, hello, everyone. This is Wilson Cole, president of Adams, Evans, and Ross and Backdoor Hires, joined by our general counsel and attorney and lovely daughter, Samantha. How are you doing, Sam?
I am doing well. How about yourself?
Doing fine, doing fine. You know, today I want to talk about, we had a couple of issues last week that are kind of close cousins of the same issue. And I really do think that when it comes to contracts, everybody needs a process. And we're always talking about get things signed and all that. That's a given. Now let's go with the two issues that we ran into last week. The first one was not knowing who you're dealing with. If a company says, or you think that they are ABC Enterprises, and that is who you have on the contract, and the Secretary of State says that they're actually ABC Services and Enterprises, guess what? You got two different companies going on there, and trying to sue the appropriate company if it gets to that point is a problem. And so you really need to have a process. You know, Secretary of State, in my opinion, all of them have, I think very few actually charge for it. I think there may be one or two. But as a general rule, you can go to any Secretary of State, enter in business search, and it will pull up who the company is, their registered agent, and all of that. I think that that is the number one step in the setting up the credit process, is know who you're dealing with when you put that on the contract. Now, Sam, I will pass the other aspect that we ran into last week that just absolutely drove you nuts, because we had a client that actually got the contract signed, and take over from there.
When, files come into my office, if I'm having to handle it or we're forwarding it out to the attorneys, I'll get everything. And I know half of you guys that are watching this probably have gotten the phone call from me and think I'm crazy of, do we have everything? Why I'm doing that is to make sure, one, there isn't, a smoking gun that could make this where there's not even a requirement for a trial. We can just summary judgment our way through the process. But I'm also wanting to double check of what documents did you think you sent over and maybe you hadn't, or things like that. If we're now running into, there have been a couple that I've had where we're into the litigation process, or we could even be where judgment's been entered and we're trying to enforce it. And they're like, oh, hey, I have that contract you asked for 6 months ago or a year ago or 2 years ago. We found it cleaning out so-and-so's desk. Mm-hmm. And we went through the entire process thinking there was no actual signed contract.
And what did that mean to the client through that litigation process?
I mean, it makes the trial process extend out longer, because you're going to run into their attorney's not going to want to settle because they're thinking there's no agreement and they can get around it under oral, agreement, and they have their list of defenses that come into play if there's not a signed contract. And then it also makes it, you can ask for attorney's fees, even if you have it in your agreement, if it's not signed. So, I mean, it's thousands of dollars that was sitting in so-and-so's desk that nobody thought about to check everywhere or check with everyone in the office to see if the contract even exists.
One of the things that we do from a system standpoint here is with our applicant or our CRM. If you're a recruiter, you're using an applicant tracking system. If you're a staffing firm, you're using some type of staffing software, but all of them are the same. You can attach a digital copy to that record to where it's always perpetually there. You can also go and sign up for DocuSign where they keep a copy of it. Samantha's kind of old school. She will actually print out a copy of all contracts and keep them in a file folder, just in case we were ever to have anything digitally corrupted, which in 27 years we haven't. But the rules for the bar
and my file at this point.
Well, the bar requires that that contracts and all be held for clients. I think it's like 7 years or something along those lines. So she always makes sure that all contracts that we have with clients are printed out. But the key is to have a system. Now, the other variation of that scenario, Samantha, which also drives you nuts, is that if you're dealing with a long-term client, you sometimes maybe have multiple contracts. As a general rule, the last one signed is everything going forward, and then the contracts that were signed prior to it cover the stuff in the past. That's basically the general understanding, unless there's something.
Pretty much, unless there's a weird I've seen some, and this one drove me insane, where you have, not only do you have multiple contracts, you have where they had a branch contract and then a national contract at the same time.
Okay.
And so trying to sort out, it becomes this whole chronological nightmare of what candidate falls under what contract.
Okay.
It could be everything from, is this a retained search, or is it a replacement guarantee, or a rebate, or a credit? So you start playing, well, this candidate was actually under that contract, so we owe you nothing, or or the ones that get me the most, if there are multiple contracts, because you start doing position specific,
which is a nightmare in its own right.
Is a nightmare and a story for another time. But even if it says, because we'll run into, it's a position specific search with a clause that says if they're hired in any capacity.
Yeah.
But then there are multiple contracts, so you're running into having to play Where's Waldo almost.
Sure. So for our existing clients, the biggest thing is check with on everybody that you're dealing with. Go out to the Secretary of State in their state, do a quick search, put in their name, and make sure that you know who you're dealing with. If you're not, ask them. Say, hey, we're getting this contract set up. What's your corporate name? And where are you guys incorporated in that? Because if you're dealing with especially a lot of large national companies, they may be incorporated in Delaware, which brings its own series of issues, and that's another topic. But know who you're dealing with, and then also have a system for tracking the contracts. Because if you cannot put your hand on a contract, then you might as well not have even gone through the effort. And if you're dealing with multiple contracts, keep them all, and that's, we'll just have to sort through it. But the biggest thing is know who you're dealing with, and if you have a signed contract, and you always should, have it in a safe place. I would do a paper copy, and I would do a digital copy attached to the client record in your applicant tracking system. Samantha, any last parting words on this subject?
No, because I could go into color coordinating and all my OCD quadrants that drive you nuts, but I won't bore everybody with that.
Yeah, that's our own dysfunction. Samantha is the attorney of the bunch, and she's very OCD. If you need a hand grenade thrown, I'm your guy, because I can get it pretty doggone close. But that is definitely a subject for another time. But the biggest thing is have a contract, know who you're dealing with, and have it signed, have a system for tracking those contracts. Sam, as always, I enjoyed it. I will see you on next Monday on our Monday morning meeting.
Sounds great.